Good evening and welcome to the November Volunteer Forum. Yes, I'm back, recovered from COVID and back into the full swing, ready to bring to you tonight a jam-packed volunteer forum. And again, my personal thanks to DCO Rohan Luke for taking the reins and doing last month's volunteer forum. So thanks for that again, Rohan. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge the Aboriginal lands to which we come together tonight, the Dja Dja Wurrung people, and pay my respects to elders past and present. And I also pay my respects to any Aboriginal elder of other communities that might be watching our show tonight. Jam-packed agenda, and we've got a bit of a full panel here with me, and we've got Gavin Thompson, our DCO for the Northwest, Luke Warren, a Rochester Captain, Gloria Turner, who's our Peer Coordinator. We're going to be talking about some interesting stuff there later on. Angela Cook, who really does have an interesting story to tell about what we're doing in some of the preparedness spaces. So that's going to be fantastic to hear about. George Calleja, Josh Watson and Bryce Ruedin. So lots of people to talk to and hear from this evening from right across the Northwest region, and that's going to be fantastic. Look, they say that District 7 is heaven, District 8 might be great, but we're in the Northwest, which according to DCO Thompson is best. Isn't that right, Gavin?
Absolutely, Chief. I know this is the fifth time you've been up to the Northwest to undertake one of these forums, so clearly there is a favouritism happening here.
A bit of bias here.
You want to come to the Northwest where the fire season does happen every year. Not many regions can actually attest to that.
That is true. That is true.
Welcome to the fire service, Chief.
Thank you. And there's a whole lot of volunteers in another part of the state right now that are probably jumping up and down. Well, let's see what we're going to talk about on tonight's show. What a jam-packed agenda. Well, Gavin, speaking of Northwest and fire seasons and always having one, today I was joined by my fellow chiefs and commissioners, and we launched the AFAC seasonal outlook for summer, in particular those areas above average fire potential that we might be seeing here in Victoria over the next couple of months. What's your take on the fire season so far, and what's looking like coming?
Yeah, great question, Chief. And it's easy to say that whilst tomorrow's the 1st of December and summer officially kicks off for Victoria, but here in Northwest, we've probably been up and running for nearly a month and a half now. Mm-hmm. We've had in excess of 20 header fires. Once they've been out in the paddock and start harvest, obviously, that puts pressure on the brigades in terms of response and contributing to their communities, downing their tools to help out a mate when their fire happens. So they're fairly busy. We had south of the District 20 here, Murphy's Creek, the other week. We had 20 plus tankers down there for a head of fire, and Rochester actually attended with their rehab unit. I don't want to steal Luke's thunder, you may touch on that a little bit later, but we put a whole heap of people through that rehab unit and did some testing, which was a great result. Not only CFA people, but also forest fire management personnel did attend that as well. Our level 3 briefings obviously were completed well and truly a month and a half ago, and the groups have been exercising right across the region in preparation for the coming summer.
And having a chat to Gavin Wright, our ACFO in District 18, one of the really scary stats that you touched on it there before was since the 2nd of November, as you said, 23 harvester fires. That's almost one a day that we're seeing across the Northwest.
Yeah, so the various types of crops obviously add to that, and I think whilst the crops were well and truly up this year compared to what perhaps they were flood affected last year, so ripping in trying to get harvest done, and that's put additional pressure on contractors and farmers, etc., trying to get through to make maximum yields while they could.
Yeah. Luke, what's your take on the season so far, and what polish the crystal ball, I guess, and tell us what you think it might be?
Look, yeah, it's a difficult one to predict, I think. I think we all thought it was going to be a really horrendous season given the El Nino event and prediction and things like that, but it certainly seems to have calmed down. We've had a fair bit of rain around here, but rain brings growth. So in our area, a lot of grass fires, that sort of thing, and particularly like Gavin touched on, headers, as the harvest moves down into the lower parts of District 20, we're expecting the 1 or 2 header fires as well.
So looking across the state for the next 3-month outlook from AFAC, there's a couple of areas that we are looking to see where potentially might be some elevated fire potential. One of those areas that you might see in the release is the Far East Gippsland. Now, interestingly enough, that map was produced before they received some 100 odd millimetres of rain. In fact, I think they're due to receive another 100 millimetres of rain in the next 24 hours. So odds are that area will return to a normal potential for fire season, and we'll be keeping a very close eye on that area. Otherwise, of particular interest to ourselves is sort of the southwestern part of Victoria and the central part of that southwestern. Anything from the most western part of the outskirts of the Melbourne metropolitan area themselves, so District 14, your patch, Gav, all the way across to Hamilton, down to Warrnambool, and then if you make a bit of a line from Warrnambool to Camperdown and then follow the Princess Highway across to Geelong, that's where we're anticipating an above normal fire potential over the next 3 months. And that's largely been driven by the rainfall deficit brought on by the El Nino and Indian Ocean positive dipole. So I know many people will be keeping a close eye on that, and our brigades are well and truly getting ready for the next couple of months. And as we heard from Deputy Chief Officer Thompson, here in the northwest, they're absolutely not only into the thick of firefighting as we mean in terms of responding to grass fires and the like, but making all the preparations necessary for what we do expect to be a return to the hot Australian traditional summer. And we're going to put a link in the chat for the Outlook. So if you are interested, please have a look in the chat and get that information there. As always, very keen to hear where you're watching from this evening, but also if you've got a question, feel free to pop that into the chat. We've got many people online from right across CFA and CFA management ready to answer your questions and give a response to any topic that might be raised. We're at Rochester here in District 20, and we've got a fantastic live audience with us this evening. In fact, give us a wave, gang. They're there. Like, look at them. You've seen a more excited, happier bunch in the whole of CFA. But we've got Rochester Brigade, Bamawn Extension, Lockington, Goornong, Tarrawingee, and Echuca Village. So from right across District 20, they've come in to watch the forum tonight, and I'm sure to ask many curly questions, of which I will dutifully delegate to the Deputy. So think about some hard ones tonight, everyone. That would be lovely. Thank you. But in all seriousness, welcome Angela, welcome Josh. Have a bit of a chat about a really important topic, and that's people at high risk. And yes, you're from our Fire Risk Research and Community Preparedness, a big title of a department, but let's focus on community preparedness.
Yeah, just use that.
And tell us a bit about your team, what you do, and what people at high risk is all about.
It's a really good question, and it's a really important question, particularly this time of year as we're heading into the fire season. We're already in the fire season, but we're heading into a larger fire season in those parts of the state you just mentioned. So I think what I'll do is I'll start with some important statistics for us to understand who's at higher risk. So research shows that people with a disability are actually 2 to 4 times more likely to die in a fire or other disaster than the general population. So that's quite significant, it's quite staggering. And in addition, we also know that house fire fatality research has shown us that 62% of fatalities were people with a disability, and that was national research, looking at 900 fatalities in total. So these stats really provided a clear direction, I suppose, for the work we're doing in CFA called People at Higher Risk, which is part of the team you just mentioned. We also include, there's other areas we include with people who might be at higher risk, people who are older, with chronic medical conditions, they can't maybe self-mobilise as well anymore. The very young, actually, there's lots of factors. People living alone is absolutely a high risk factor for people, and it's compounding. So if you think somebody who's older, living alone with a disability, so these are all risk factors. So I think what's really important is that addressing the gaps, with people who have a disability makes a big difference, because actually we don't want to leave anybody behind.
No, that's right. So what are some of the things that
doing?
CFA is doing to not leave that portion of the community behind?
It's a good question. So since 2019, we've been seriously looking at this alongside some other organisations and agencies to help us, because I think something we really can't do on our own. So it's a bit of a partnership approach. Alongside sort of formal service providers, so people who work in disability and aged care and are already going into the homes of people who are at higher risk. Carers Victoria, so that organisation who's they are responsible for supporting people who provide informal and unpaid care. We're working with them. So we've got lots of great resources now on our website to really build, I'm going to say, build capability, not necessarily in our own workforce, which is really interesting, but in this other workforce so they can help us target people at higher risk.
And they get that experience and understanding and training through CFA, don't they? Like, so people that are carers of people with disabilities, that they're able to get into on our website and then make their way through our learning management system online and actually undertake that that training, can't they?
Yeah, it's fantastic, and we've had such great feedback about the resources we're provided, and it's free. I always have to tell the health providers or disability providers, oh no, it's free, you can access it for free. So that's been really wonderful. Another piece of work is CFA is at the forefront of this piece of work, and that is offering a household service with people who are at higher risk to help build their fire and emergency plan. And we're working alongside Red Cross with that service at the moment and piloting that in a number of places across the state. And I think what's really good about that service is what we're trying to do here is really recognise the strengths of people who have a disability, because they manage every day in really challenging environments. And so this is an amazing strength they can bring to planning. So let me show you some examples.
Yes, absolutely.
Would that help?
Tell us all about it.
It's listening, I think, to their lived experience stories has been absolutely pivotal. So our general messaging is for people just to leave early over summer. Just before a fire starts, just leave early. But what if you can't? What if you need a little bit of extra support, to do that? So we need to understand, I suppose, what that is, because, like I said before, nobody should be left behind. If we understand those support needs, then we can work with that individual. Does that make sense? It's not so much what the disability is. It's not about, or medical condition, or it's MS, or it's Parkinson's, so forth. Yeah, it's what people can do or they can't do, and then working through that. So it's been, a really good, so currently the program's being run in a couple of locations across the state, not up here in Campaspe Shire, even though they're an awesome shire. It's being run in some other places across the state. And do you need me to name them? No. Let's keep going.
And I think you're very, very passionate, and I can hear it in your voice, and it's certainly a great, absolutely fantastic and great experience. We have someone special here this evening. Welcome, Josh Watson. From Bamawn Extension Brigade. Now, Josh, I understand you're blind?
Yep.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about your CFA journey, what got you involved, and how you contribute to our great organisation.
Well, many years ago we moved to Echuca, and after a while Dad joined up to the CFA, and then I was like, well, they've got social members, they seem quite nice, I'll join up as well. So I asked and I joined up.
Awesome. And what do you enjoy the most about being a member of CFA?
Being able to talk to everyone, being able to be a part of something bigger than me, being able to help out where I can. I help out at the barbecues, passing out drinks. Just being a part of it.
And what, knowing that our volunteer forum goes out worldwide, it is a public broadcast, so anyone can be watching this, and including anyone right now who may have a disability. What advice would you give to someone that might have a disability today and thinking, I can't be part of this?
I'd say you can be. You may not be able to do much, but what you can do is always going to be helpful.
Absolutely. And Josh, look, from my perspective, thank you very much for your contribution. It really does go to show that there is a role for everyone in CFA, and I think what you're doing in the brigade is absolutely fantastic. And thank you for coming along onto the panel this evening.
No problem.
Not a problem. So Angela, we a number of programs that we work through, and one that I know I've actually gone online and done the training myself.
Yes.
Is that Prevent, Detect, Escape program for carers. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that one?
Absolutely. So this is an e-learning module focusing on home fire safety, actually, because of what we found out from the fatality report data. And it has, I think, broken down home fire safety into those 3 key parts: how you can prevent, easy things you can do to prevent fires starting, how to detect them if they do start, so it's all smoke alarms, and helping to clear up some of those myths and what works, or, you know, for smoke alarms for people. And then the escape part, which is actually really critical for people who may have a disability or older and may be unable to self-evacuate themselves. That escape part is really critical, because you can if you can detect a fire but you can't get out, that's a bit of a problem. So we've got we've actually, once again, I suppose, led this work across Australia in this area, which has been pretty exciting, alongside our friends at FRV, because this is the same concern across the fire services with people at higher risk. And once again, so that's gone out, to our members. All our members can do that. So hopefully there's people here listening, they're like, oh, I'm going to jump on LMS and do the Prevent, Detect, Escape module. I'm looking out at the live crowd just to see. They're like, I'm not sure. But it's been very popular, and basically from that then we've had people contacting us. It's been a good way for people to refer in who might need extra support, who might need a smoke alarm installed because they can't, or just some extra support. So it's just been a really good mechanism to get out there for carers, for support workers, for our own people. And hopefully others here have now heard about it, are going to jump online and do that before the winter season. It's more of the winter.
Absolutely, and I think that's absolutely the plug, I guess we'll call that one. Josh, I got to say, my friend, you've got some fans in the YouTube world, and many people sending their love and regards to you. The question I have for yourself is, what advice would you give CFA about improving what we do, and how we could improve your experience or experience with other people that might have a disability?
Stumped me. I'm really not sure. Off the top of my head, there's not much I can think of. What usually will happen is after the thing's already done, I'll come up with something.
No, it's always the way. It's always the way, isn't it? Gavin, you've spent a long career in the fire service, and particularly operating in that urban environment as well. I'm pretty sure you've probably seen and done many things. How important is it for an organisation like CFA to engage with community members that might have a disability to improve fire outcomes or fire safety outcomes?
So I think obviously the engagement at that municipal level is important, and we see our brigades contribute in a whole range of areas in that space. But to understand the local risk that the brigades face, and obviously brigade leadership teams look at those sorts of things and are aware of their vulnerable people generally in terms of the community, and generate pre-plans and response mechanisms to support that for when the worst case scenario happens and a fire does occur. But I think the prevention part, and I think that's what Angie's message is tonight, is let's get on the front foot and actually prevent it before it occurs. And I think that's a pivotal role. And sometimes I think we get focused on the big red truck out the door, but if we can do the pre-fire bit, sometimes a little bit of effort there will save a whole lot of heartache for a whole range of community members if we get that right.
Absolutely. And Luke, for a community like Rochester, as the brigade captain, what does it mean for yourself?
Yeah, look, it's a great thing, and I just want to pay homage to Bamawn Extension, who have done some great work, particularly with Josh in the end here, but also Josh, who's in our audience tonight. They've done some great things with those guys, and they've contributed, just like any other member would. So it's been fantastic to see Bamawn Extension's example being set.
Excellent. So Bamawn Extension.
Bamawn.
There you go, Eric.
Or just the extension.
You called me out on my mispronunciation. What was it? Just the extension.
Just the extension.
I might just stick to that one if that's okay.
So here you go when George is on the panel too.
Well, yes, okay. I'll take one of those.
Other CFA members with a disability. There's 3. Can I mention them? Because
go for it.
They've actually been also really important, I think, in helping us understand, the experience of disability, what people need. So I'd like to give a shout out to Bianca Bassett from Lakes Entrance Brigade. Scott Tomlinson from District 7 and Tim Marchington as well from District 8. Yeah, and there's many others actually. They're the three that I can think of at the top of my head, but there's others that have been really important and shared their wisdom. So thank you.
Awesome. No, thank you, and a big shout out to the
Now
gang.
Josh as well.
And absolutely, and now Josh. And we're about to hear from another Josh who's got a question for us. Welcome, Josh.
Hi. So there's part of the CFA group for you guys. It's not like all the group. You're great members, and you're like discussion of all the fire stuff, all this stuff like fires and that. Bamawn Extension. It's my dad over here, back there. So he does like fire stuff. Like so we work from home, and I always got CFA Bamawn. So he does work. Something he does, communication stuff. Like actual stuff. Like dealing with stuff with like Bamawn protection and stuff to my father. Sometimes he does calls, to emergency calls. Some of all the fire stuff, all that different fires.
Well, Josh, thank you very much for sharing your experience, what it means to be in CFA, and obviously between you and Dad, you're doing quite a lot for your local community. So congratulations, and thank you for coming on tonight. Well done, my friend.
Chief, you often see him cooking the barbecue at group meetings.
Oh, he cooks a mean sausage?
Cooks a mean sausage and a mean hamburger. A great part of the group meetings is Josh cooking the barbecue.
Oh, fantastic! No, congratulations, Josh. You're a little champion, and thanks for telling us your story. 16 Days of Activism, held from the 25th of November through to the 10th of December, and it's 16 days where we really rally and think about towards and against gender-based violence, and it's a global campaign led by the United Nations for Women. It symbolises a global push to eliminate gender-based violence with a focus on young females and girls. And I know there's a number of people who have been executive sponsors within CFA that have been highlighting the need for us to be mindful of the 16 days of activism and actually think about what it means not only for the females in the CFA, but females more broadly in the community. Gav, I know as a senior leader in CFA, how important is it that we bring attention to, I guess, the social issue of violence against women in our communities?
I think first and foremost, isn't it a shame that 2023 we have to have such a campaign? So I think that's probably worth acknowledging. But I think as men we have a clear responsibility in this space, clearly not to commit such acts, that's first and foremost, but also call it out. So I think too often it's easy to walk away and turn a blind eye, but I think we have a responsibility. 2023, it's not good enough, and we need to call it out and intervene where we witness it or where we know it's happening, to actually make sure that all our people, and it is about people at the end of the day, are safe. So men, women, everybody is safe, but particularly whilst we go through this 16-day period, acknowledging the campaign that women and girls are equals to men and they should be treated no differently, and we need to call that out. Absolutely.
50% of the population, and we're not doing good enough when it comes to ensuring gender diversity in our membership ranks, because there really is an untapped potential and capability in our broader communities that could be in our fire brigades contributing to communities, and it's not good enough that women are subjected to violence in the community. And and certainly we stop tonight to think about that and raise awareness to the 16 Days of Activism. So thanks for filling that in. We're going to put a link in the chat if you would like to know more about the 16 Days of Activism and what you can do to stamp out violence against women. To another cause that raises awareness to community about the great work the volunteers do right across the globe and Australia in all manner of community things, emergency services and other care environments. And that's International Volunteer Day. And that's held on the 5th of December. And this year's theme is, well, if everyone did. And what would a great place it would be if everyone did volunteer and contribute to the communities. And it's how important is it to, Luke, for you to, I guess, have volunteers, the contribution of volunteers and community raised more broadly?
Yeah, so we're a small town in Rochester, and to have volunteers, there's a number of volunteer avenues people can go down and organisations people can volunteer for, but certainly if you start including people and getting people, going back to what Gav was saying about females, it's vitally important that we make sure that people are able to volunteer, we give them access to volunteer, we give them a great pathway to do that. It's vital for a brigade sustainability, particularly in a small town like ours.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Angela, what about yourself? How important is it? You're obviously advocating for looking after vulnerable communities, but what about in the general awareness to the value of volunteers in this space?
Wow, it's a big question, isn't it? Sometimes I think we just need to shift the lens, the way we look at people and look at who's in our community to who could potentially volunteer. So sometimes we just need to do a check-in with our own, I suppose, biases or unconscious bias, whatever they happen they are, and just maybe check in with yourself again about, well, maybe they could make a good volunteer, they could contribute, and what could they do? So I think, in terms of like thinking ahead, with our organisation being a volunteer organisation, like what do we want the future to be? And imagine celebrating this day in, 20 years time or something. And what will that look like? I'm thinking of the gender diversity and other diversity.
Well, diversity of background.
Yep.
Like we strive to represent the communities to which we serve to protect. So that would be fantastic. And certainly from myself and the CFA board, we wish to stop and thank all the volunteers right across Australia, but in particular the 52,000 volunteers in CFA and the 29,000 odd volunteers that are out there day and night on the fire trucks, on the end of the hose, doing what we do best, which is serving Victorian communities. So thank you very much for everything that you do, and we hope that by raising awareness to the great work that volunteers do in the community, we might actually have a couple of people think about coming along and wanting to be part of any volunteer organisation. We'd prefer you be part of CFA, but any volunteer organisation in the community giving back, and as the slogan says, what would happen if everyone did. Well, it's that time again where we hear from training, and Deputy Chief Officer Rohan Luke has put together this month's training update. So Rohan, let's see what training's been up to.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks, Chief, for the introduction. It's great to see you back leading the panel. I'd like to thank everyone for their questions from the last forum. We've taken the questions from the night and provided responses on Members Online. There are a number of issues that have been insightful. It's clear that we have more work to do on the recognition of prior learning processes for our units of competency, as there is a backlog in some of the RPC requests in the system. In putting a focus on this, we hope to address a number of issues. Where we can, we will simplify the process for our members to see if we can open up the bottleneck in requests. The AFAC peer review identified a need for CFA to develop a training pathways for our operational training, and we have now developed a draft pathway to start consultation. Our DCOs and Joint Training Committee has had an initial look, and we're now working with the JTC to explore it in detail. It's envisaged the pathways will pick up on firefighting roles, as well as specialist, IMT, community safety and operational support. Whilst we've made a good start, it'll take time to ensure we have this right. We are also in the final stages of developing a complaints feedback process as identified in the AFAC review. The recommendation sought for a feedback process that ensured members' feedback was not lost and that issues were either dealt with or errors rectified, and that complaints be dealt with appropriately. This includes following up with the complainant. This process will be open to everyone and will help us ensure we enhance our training and ensure our members are treated within our behavioural standards. The Response to Urban Fire course is continuing to roll out, and we are keen to hear from members on how it has benefited them and get feedback on the course. We will be sending out a survey to each participant in coming weeks. Can I take the opportunity now to thank members who have taken the time to give us feedback on the course so far. We have now finalised a number of courses and are starting handover processes to ensure we have a strong field of instructors, both paid and volunteer, to deliver the courses. We're also working with the regions to ensure they're able to include the courses where required into their training calendars. You should expect to see Tree Hazard Assessor, Drive Off-Road and Intro to AIMS on training calendars in the near future where districts have identified a training need. Our focus and priority for course development is in a number of areas, including intermediate bushfire behaviour, Fire Weather 1, conduct brief and debrief to help people move into the IMT pathway now that the Intro to AIMS is due for release. Our training campuses have seen a significant increase in students in comparison to the same time last year, which is extremely pleasing. It's great to see as we've invested heavily into these facilities. Our mobile training props have also been well utilised and provide a different offering than the campuses. However, I have had feedback from some brigades have felt that they aren't able to use the mobile training props as they are too close to a campus. This is not true, and what I've asked the mobile prop team is to ensure that a brigade is less than 100 k's from a campus, that a justification is provided why a mobile training prop should be used over the campus. We want to ensure that everyone gets access to training, and our campus and mobile props are both invaluable. As you can see, there's a lot happening in the training space, and I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone involved in the development, delivery and governance of training in CFA. As we move into Christmas period and into the new year, we will continue to work hard to enhance the training offering to our members. Thanks everyone, back to you, Chief.
Thanks, Rohan, and thanks for that update with what's going on in the training department, and certainly your team has done a fantastic job of producing quite a lot of material and unclogging the pipe to getting a lot of that training activity back happening across the brigade. So congratulations on that. So I might just address a couple of questions in the chat. I know the team are on there busily answering a number of them, but I do want to make sure that I do address a few of them on air. Jonathan, your question about why did the Class 1 brigades not receive a red incident controller tabard? Well, I'm pleased to let you know that we are rolling out the red tabards to Class 1 brigades, and they're currently in the process of being ordered, and you'll receive more information about that over the next couple of weeks as we go through the process of receiving them and then seeking to distribute. So our current plan is that each Class 1 brigade will receive one of the new tabards. The other question, Mitch, in respect to structural PPC, in respect to the time it takes to get it, I'd encourage you to make contact with your district office and have a chat to them, and I'm sure they can follow that up for you and be able to let you know what's going on there, and we'll chase that up. So thank you very much. Well, I'm joined by a few more panel members. As you might have seen, we've got George at the end. Welcome, George. Gloria, welcome.
Thank you.
Excellent. And Bryce, welcome. Thank you. Excellent. So thanks for coming on, and we'll I'm sure we'll have lots of good stuff to talk about. Maybe we will. Awesome. Luke.
Yes.
Mate, I've got to say, last time I was here, called in, it was at the, I guess the peak, it was just straight after the floods.
It was, yeah.
Wasn't too much plasterboard on the walls, and a lot of stuff up high, and then there was a lot of stuff that you and the gang were carrying out that unfortunately got flooded. Tell me what happened.
So I guess our role started primarily before the flood, so we were liaising with SES and other emergency services. So we were fairly fortunate that a lot of us had, well, I suppose you call it fortunate, a lot of us had been through the 2011 flood event. So we sort of had an expectancy of what was going to happen and where it was going to flood and things like that. So we had some plans in place, and hats off to First Lieutenant Brett Kine and Group Officer Luke Weymouth, who did an outstanding job in that planning phase for what we were going to do. So that's really where we started. We then went on to the flood event, which was a bigger event than what we expected. Ably supported by the group, and Bamawn Extension were part of that. We were primarily supporting the SES in their role, but it soon became evident that through lack of capability from training and personnel on the ground, SES weren't able to really be the incident controllers in the Rochester sector. So Victoria Police took over and we supported those. Just some quick figures. We did 321 rescues on the back of fire trucks throughout the flood period. Not just Rochester fire trucks, but fire trucks supplied by CFA. And there's no doubt that without those rescues, people would have been inundated and possibly more serious injuries or death would have occurred.
And we're seeing some footage here and some images of flooding that was occurring back at that time. But there wasn't too many places here in Rochester, in fact probably none, that weren't affected in some way by the flooding, was there?
No, and that's the thing. Like, there were a lot of places that got wet. The majority of the town got wet. But when we say affected, I had people come up to me who didn't get flooded, townspeople and even brigade members, and they felt that survivor guilt. They were feeling guilty that, everyone's having a really rough time, and here we are living in our houses. So, absolutely, it affected everyone in the town. It affected all the families, brigade members, and things like that. So, we launched into the recovery phase, I suppose you call it. We were the sector after the flood. I was the sector commander here, and what amazes me was the help that we got from not only the strike teams which came in, which was fantastic, but from townspeople. We spoke before about volunteering. We've actually, instead of dropping numbers, we've actually gained numbers. So really proud of the work that we did and the community did, not just us, but the community as a whole of Rochester was so fantastic and gave us great support.
So talk us through how, I guess that would have been a bit of a personal challenge for you.
Yep.
Leader of your brigade, so a group of members that you need to provide that leadership and strength to.
Yep.
Living in a community that's been devastated by flooding, and then also having on top of that a command and control role in running a sector in a multi-agency response. How did you balance that? How did you deal with during that time?
Look, it was tough. I'm not going to lie about that. It was certainly tough. Like you said, I've got 48 members here, and as a captain, you kind of feel responsible for those members and what they're going through, and you want your members to be happy and your members to be kicking goals in life. And obviously, when the flood came through, everyone all at once, it wasn't just one at a time, everyone all at once had some issues. So I'm fairly fortunate. I've got a great group of core friends and mates that really supported me. I've got great brigades around me, and Chuka Village, Bamawn Extension, really chipped in, and other captains, phone calls, things like that. My partner, who is really strong and really said to me, "Righto, this is enough. You've got to come home," which sometimes we need as CFA volunteers. We can't always be at the station, even if we want to be. And I certainly know that was true of a few other members as well, that were really, really doing hard work here at the station. But we've got to think too, our partners are at home cleaning up and doing all that stuff that we should be helping with, but aren't doing. So it was a difficult time to balance that. But with the help of great leadership within our brigade, great support from CFA, it's been somewhat easier. And I really want to push home the importance of those strike teams that came up. Twice I've had help from strike teams. Now, one was the 1925s at Strathallan, the other one was here. And to see those strike teams roll into town, you can't imagine the relief that you feel as a captain or as a leader to see those strike teams roll in. And, you know, going away now, I'll never think that what we're doing as a strike team doesn't matter, because I know what it does for towns when you see the strike team roll in.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we'll just touch on, I guess, in a minute the importance of the role of the peer. But I just to let everyone know watching, we've got some punter out there that's trying to impersonate Natalie and myself in the chat, which we'll take care of. So just ignore the fool. Peers.
Peers.
So I guess how important was peers to yourself, Luke, and how important was it for the peers to be here?
Well, the peers were actually here. We came in on the Saturday morning when the flooding had happened on the Friday night. So we were here to Lockington. We were asked to come to see what we could do, and that's normally what's said to peers, see what you can do. And so we try to do whatever's coming our way, whatever's needed at the time. It was a very chaotic situation because so many people were working out of a small water treatment plant as the staging area. We had at that stage all the agencies weren't here because it was very early in the piece, but we had our fire trucks going in, saving people, tractors with hay trailers on the back, people coming out, helicopters. We had, VicPol. We had, because there was a deceased person, we had media, we had everything happening in this small area. So peers were there for our own, but also cross-agency to see what we could do. Food, wellbeing, extract people if they really got to a stage where they needed assistance away from the zone. So, as we always find, we are the people behind the scenes trying to see what's needed at the time. And that's how it was with the flooding.
Mm-hmm. So Luke, probably a bit of a personal journey for you, I'm sure.
Yep.
How did you did you talk to the peers during this time? What was your personal experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I spoke to the peers as I needed their peer support, but I also spoke to them and, to try and get some support from my members. Like I said, I had 50 or so members come to me and say, look, this is what's happened. And I can't, and no one person can physically or mentally solve people's problems to that regard. I was working my full-time job, had the sector, and so, to be able to refer someone to a peer is one less job, and it's something that makes me feel good in that I know that they're going to get looked after. The work that Gloria and her team have done for Rochester Fire Brigade, not just during the flood and not just post-flood, for the whole, even a year on still, I rang Gloria the other day. It's an amazing support structure there for people that need it. And it's a great tool for captains, BMTs and anyone, if you're worried about anyone, to say, look, do you mind if we put you in contact with a peer, with someone from the wellbeing team? Mm-hmm. It's an amazing thing that CFA provides. It's free, it's confidential, and I only know the tip of the iceberg. I know the people that I've referred to Gloria, and I know myself and my family, but I'm sure there are hundreds of other phone calls that have come from Rochester members, and looking back, from 2011 to now, one of the huge differences was the peer support program and the peace of mind it was able to provide me.
Absolutely. So Gloria, talk us through. We're in an incident, whether it be the flooding, whether it be any type of incident. Firecom, word back, signal 27.
Yes.
Tell us what happens from then.
So it takes once the signal is put across the radio, it takes about 5 minutes to get to the peer phone, which I usually hold, or one of the deputy peers hold. We respond to the person and phone number that we're explained by the state desk, and we contact. It might be the incident controller, it could be a commander or whoever it is. We contact them and say, what's happened, how many people, what brigades and everything like that, and we take it from there. So we speak to the incident controller themselves or the captain, and at that moment we are either requested to go to the scene, which doesn't happen very often these days. It has recently, to a fatality, or we arrange to go to the brigade when the crews are going back, or if it's, if it's not too bad, if members are coping, we will contact every member that was there at that scene, and then we'll go to the after action review if we're requested. We don't self-deploy, we always wait to be requested. So every incident is different though. That's really generalising.
And everyone's personal experience is very different as well, isn't it? So, and that's, I guess, why sometimes, people might be affected straight away, sometimes it's the next day, sometimes it's a month or two down the track, isn't it?
It could be 40 years later too, which we find. And I've just had, that's why it's kind of come off my head. It can be, we can go to an incident and someone is really distressed because there's been a fatality, even though they're not close to, the main part of the scene. And, we deal with that distress at that time. Or there could be people that, as you say, 2 weeks later they might, find that it's making them remember something that happened in their life. And it could be, as with Black Summer, it could be that it wasn't until some were on the road with the, when the trucks were going to Queensland, that Ash Wednesday, Black Saturday came back at them once they smelt the fire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's an incredible situation, really.
So talk us through, we're in Rochester.
Yep.
So talk us through your experience of the floods and your role as a peer, and what did that time look like for you?
Most of our work has been done after the floods because we received government funding for flood recovery, and we arranged 15 different events for groups in flood recovery where we supplied a meal, got them together, had a speaker, really whatever that group wanted. It wasn't our decision, it was their decision. And that's been really successful, and we're still going on with those events. Rochester became very personal because we're not untouched by the, by the distress of people, by the lost pets, by the homes that have been destroyed. We're people, even though, we're ordinary people who are thrown into incredible situations at times, just because we are firefighters as well. We're brigade members and we're firefighters, so we understand what our members are going through. And Rochester, because we had so much contact with them and because it was so intense, it became very personal, and it's still very personal. Yeah. Something I'll never forget. I'd never been involved in a flood before. Fire, yes, but flood, it's insidious. It creeps up on you. It goes into every crack. It, has a terrible smell and mud left behind. So very different.
Talk us about, obviously, dealing with peers, dealing with any of the support services within CFA in this, in this regard, are absolutely confidential. So, I know there'll be no name, no pack drill. But can you give me a bit of an example of where, CFA members have benefited from seeking help?
And it is confidential, and we really take that very seriously. There's 170 peers across the state, and even though we need to debrief quite often too, we keep it all confidential. It's really, where do you start? Because everything that happens to a human, affects our members, and so those things come to us, whether it be a cancer in a family. And I have to be really, across the board with it, because we have dealt with all these situations, whether it's suicide in a family, whether it's drug abuse, after a fatality, after a fire, people lost in the bush, everything, physical abuse, as you were talking about, touched a few nerves. Everything that happens, peers are faced with, and it is an incredible service that CFA supplies. It amazes me every day what is actually there for
So you must really get to experience the best of humanity, but also maybe the not so good as well, in the people that you get to deal with and the situations that you get to deal with.
Do you know that we don't get abused because we're there for the right reasons, and our members respect the job that we're doing. And even though they might get angry sometimes, they're not angry at us. They're angry at what's going on in their life, and it's for us to try to help and send them in the direction of the service that can assist them.
So, Bryce, I understand you've got a story to tell.
Yep, so just recently there was an incident regarding an MVA on the Midland Highway near our station. We turned out straight after an incident that had already happened in the local area. We'd just finished tying up on that scene when we got called to the MVA. I was on the back of our Tanker 1, which you can't hear a lot of radio traffic on the back there, but yeah, by the time we'd turned up, we'd found out what the actual incident was, and it's not one that you like to deal with, but obviously we do at times, and just preparedness and readiness with the members and stuff like that, reduce exposure and stuff.
And how do the members in the brigade and the crew that attended, like how do you support each other and help each other through, you know, what must be sometimes a very difficult scene to face?
I believe it starts before an incident, understanding what your members are capable of and what they do and don't want to be exposed to. Obviously we all have our limits at what we do, and understand your members and what they can do. After action reviews, stuff like that, talk about the incident, engage with each other on a personal level, so even friends, family, etc. That's a good way to debrief from it all.
Mm-hmm. And Gloria, the services that CFA provide, and Bryce, you talk about family, it's not just for the member, is it? It actually is also there for the member's immediate family.
That's right. We deal a lot with family members who, the member is concerned about something that's going on in their family and ask us to contact and see what we can do. So there's everything that happens to a member happens to a family member. So yes, it's fantastic that actually occurs. That it's a big part of our work.
And that just goes to show, you know, the level of support that we want to put around our people, and we know that our members can't do what they do without the love and support of their family. So, yeah, it makes good sense to make sure that we're looking after that family network as well. So welcome, George.
Chief.
So during the floods, I understand you were a divisional commander.
Correct.
Tell me your story.
Yes, well, we came to support Rochester on the Friday, and then I was asked to go into Echuca because we knew that the water was going to move along, and Echuca was the next town to get flooded. So I ended up in the role in Echuca as divisional commander, emotionally, mentally, physically exhausting, but I worked very close with some other brigades around us as well to try and support them. And unfortunately, while I was there as the commander, a pager message came through that my father's house, where my father lives, the road was going under. I was on the night shift that particular night. I left at 6:30 in the morning, rang my son to come in with the four-wheel drive, and the road that my father's house was on had completely flooded, and we got my father out. My brigade then started to evacuate people along the road. We hooked up caravans. This is 6:45 in the morning on a Sunday morning. Everyone, of course, especially elderly people, still asleep. So we were knocking on doors, waking them up. They hadn't realised that they had, at that stage, probably 25, 30 mil of water going through their houses. We got him out of trouble, and then we started to evacuate. We hooked up caravans. We ended up using Bamawn Extension's fire station. It's like a small caravan park. We had 3 caravans there, until people could work out where they were going to go and what they were going to do. It was stressful, but in all the time seeing what I saw, unfortunately, it took something as devastating as the floods to bring all the emergency services so close together. SES, Forest Fire Management, Parks, it really banded us together, and I believe it should be like that all the time. It shouldn't take something as devastating as the floods, but it was great to work off one another. As I said, it was stressful.
So talk me through, I can only imagine what it must have been like personally for you, but talk me through, I guess, how did you manage, how did you continue to be able to lead the division, to be able to lead the people under your charge when one of your own was potentially facing a situation themselves?
Having great captains around you and great people around you to support you. We had great commanders as well that popped in from time to time to see how we were travelling, to see if everything's okay. That really helped. And there was one particular gentleman from peer support, Patrick. He could see every time I was in a little bit of bother, it was stressful, and he would come over and he'd just have a joke with me and just, and it'd get me going again. So it was having those people around you that really helped. And of course, family. My family supported me 110%. It was hard. And my father, he lost his house, and he kept saying, go out there, there's many people, there's other people, it's just not just me, go out there, keep going. And I think that's what kept me going, yeah.
A very powerful story.
Yeah.
Luke, what are some of the methods that you've used to keep going?
I think, like George said, you've got to focus on the positives, and the joke, it's sometimes just as simple as a joke to get your mind back in the game. And certainly, the help, and like I said before, and like George has mentioned, the help from other captains, from the brigade members as well. Just because I'm a captain doesn't mean I don't feel, I'm pretty sure they'll all say I'm heartless, but it's not the case. But it's just trying to focus on those silver linings. And, looking back on it now, we had the 1 year anniversary in October. There's so many good things to focus on now, friendships with other brigades. I mean, the cup you're drinking out of tonight, gift from Doreen, and we've made a sister brigade with those. The impact that the CFA had on Rochester, not all people will know, but certainly, the strike teams, the work that they did stripping people's houses put people weeks ahead of schedule. So that recovery time, where they would have to wait 3 or 4 weeks to strip houses or whatever, our CFA strike teams went in and did that, and made sure that people were, not exposed to mould, not exposed to wet carpets, stink, all that sort of thing. It's about focusing on the positives, and in every ordinary situation there's positives, and even the work the Wellbeing team did, and Gloria, great mates with Gloria now. I don't know if she thinks I'm a mate, but certainly, I pester Gloria a fair bit. But the exposure that the Wellbeing team got in Rochester, and then the subsequent uptake of that service, it's a positive. And we didn't actually, we thought as a BMT that we would lose members after the floods, particularly some of those older members that, we thought, I've got better things to focus on now than this. But in reality, we grew members. We had 4 or 5 members join post-flood, and that's a remarkable story. And certainly a lot of that can be attributed to, particularly the non-loss of members, is to that Wellbeing team.
So I guess, Luke, George, Bryce, I guess back in the time, men don't cry, stiff upper lip, can be tough. What do you say to that?
Times have changed.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We've all got our good mates that we reach out to, and we share our things, debrief, understand each other, and just understand that what we talk about doesn't go any further than there. Mm-hmm. We're all human.
Yeah, absolutely. And a little birdie tells me, Bryce, that you actually, you're keen in joining Gloria's ranks.
I have spoken to Gloria, yep. I have had the benefit of meeting Gloria on good terms and good places. The recent event was another place I ran into Gloria and got to see her in action and talking to people and working through the problems that they were having on scene. But yeah, talking about it, thinking about moving forward with it, and we'll see where I'll go in a year's time.
Oh, awesome. Gloria, if anyone is out there who is interested in being a peer, how do they go about it?
Online, we have in the Wellbeing Hub, we have a expression of interest form that they can actually fill out and send it in online, and we actually respond to that. There's a couple of points, can I make?
Go for it.
With Bryce, when he was saying about planning before the incident, we say when you're on the way to the job, check on each other's well-being. How are you feeling today? Be really honest, brutally honest. I'm feeling shit today and I really don't want to be up the front. You know, let that person operate the pump or be on the stop and go or something like that, and look after each other that way. That was never done. And now people are being more honest, and often if it might be a wash away and it actually turns into a fatality or an incident that you weren't expecting. So it's really good to check on each other and make sure that, you know, they're really, really good. Before, about the girls joining CFA, my brigade's got 8 female members and they're really capable and fantastic. And as you say, we're growing with the girls, and they certainly have, you know, the potential to pick up where the men aren't around during the day and the girls are, well, especially in the Mallee and places like that, where they can actually fill a lot of gaps. I'd encourage any woman to have a go. I never thought that I would be in CFA, and I certainly never thought that I'd be a peer. I only joined CFA because of Black Saturday. I thought that never again will I be pacing at home wondering what my husband was doing in CFA. I had to be there to help the community. So to join CFA and actually be part of it is very rewarding. And someone said to me when I joined that, oh, you're going to join the CFA family, and I thought, I don't believe that. But it's honestly true. It's such a big organisation and it is a family. Without the wellbeing team behind us, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. They support us, they're proactive, they're positive. We have a great relationship. We do a lot of training. You know, we're meeting regularly and everything. So it's not us, it's the whole team across the board.
It is a big team effort right across CFA. Well, look, I've been here a couple of times. In fact, one time that I came here was with the then Premier, Dan Andrews. And on that day, we sort of made a bit of a promise to you. Do you want to tell us about that and what you're expecting? Yeah, so speaking of positives, another positive that's come out of the flood is the complete rebuild of the station. So we're looking forward to moving into a new facility with SES in the coming years. So fully funded, and we've had some consultation at the moment, so it's all very exciting, and certainly has put a lot of petrol back in the tank of some of the older members and those that were sort of thinking about perhaps, oh, you know, I'm getting a little bit old for this, have certainly vowed to stay on for a bit longer. So it's exciting that, you know, it won't be at this site, it'll be at a new site, but yeah, a new station I think for any brigade is an exciting time. Absolutely. So speaking of new stations, can you tell us a bit about what we see here in front of us and how it came to be and what does it mean for the brigade? Yeah, so this is Coolamon. We, in District 20, we were the first brigade to have a smoking ceremony in District 20 as part of the Courier Inclusion Action Plan, which we had a member here at the time, Bruce Barrett, who was really passionate about being part of the Courier Inclusion Action Plan, and we as a brigade jumped on board and supported him with that. And with Angela, one of our previous panellists, she was in that role at the time. So we had a smoking ceremony, we started flying the Aboriginal flag at the front, and an Aboriginal gentleman saw that and heard about what we had done in that space and gifted us this Coolamon. He helps young disadvantaged Aboriginal boys particularly,
and he teaches them how to make traditional sort of Aboriginal tools and things like that. And he gifted this to us, and we're forever grateful that he saw what we were doing and felt that he could, felt comfortable and gave us this gift.
Oh, awesome! No, it's really a fantastic gift, and one that I'm sure is very well respected by the brigade, and will take pride of place in the new station when it comes to be.
Absolutely, used for carrying just general items. You can carry whatever you want on it.
Very good, very good. Well, if today's discussion has raised concerns for you, or is really given you a bit of a hard time, Gloria, what can they do?
Signal 27 if it's an incident, or I've got my little card here, 1800 959 232. Peer support, you'll be asked what number. It'll be press 1 for member assistance, and that's on the back of this card too. Press 2 for peer support, and you need to put your district in. So District 2 is 02. So the chaplaincy program or the wellbeing team. And there's such a range of services that's very brief and everything, but it's worth having a look and finding out what services are available.
No, awesome. So in case someone wasn't quick enough to get it, can you give us that number again?
I have to look. 1800 959 232.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Panel, thank you very much, really, for sharing your story. And I know it's probably a bit difficult at times, but it is really appreciated. And I've been looking at the comments here as we've been talking, and our membership has been, very appreciative of you sharing your experiences and sharing your personal stories. So thank you for doing so. It's greatly appreciated. Well, we've got a couple of important anniversaries coming up, and this Saturday will be the 25th anniversary of the Linton disaster that saw 5 of our members from Geelong West unfortunately die as a result of being trapped by fire in their tanker. Their deaths, however, was not in vain. As a result of that incident, and our research department and many modifications and attempts were made to improve crew protection systems and firefighter safety on the fire ground. So on Saturday, I encourage everyone to stop, pause, and think of those 5 brave Geelong West members who unfortunately perished on that day. There will be some memorial events. One at the memorial site at Linton from 3 to 4 p.m. Before a progression to Geelong West Fire Brigade Station for the unveiling of a new memorial at 4:30 in the afternoon. So if you are interested, feel free to pop on down. And in fact, on Monday, the CFA board held its meeting in Linton Fire Brigade Station, and then after the meeting, we took opportunity to make our way to the site. And just spend a bit of time in solemn reflection and on the crew that was perished. There's also another anniversary on Friday, the 22nd of December, and that's the 80th anniversary of the Tarrawingee fire. And unfortunately, again, a situation where a number of our members, or then members, extends back to the Country Fire Brigades Board, unfortunately lost their lives in the protection and the service of others. And again, on the 22nd of December, we will stop and pause the brave men that gave of themselves. And interestingly enough, a lot of them, in fact 2, were only 14 at the time of that tragedy. So a couple of important anniversaries coming up that certainly will stop and pause to reflect on that moving forward. Again, the chat's been through, and I know I've sort of seen it's slowed down a bit, so I'm assuming that most people have had their questions answered by those online. I thank the members of staff online for being able to get there on there this evening to answer people's questions. In particular, I'd like to thank our panel members this evening, Gavin Thompson, our DCO for the Northwest, Luke Warren, our Rochester Captain. Thanks Luke.
Chief. Thank you.
Not a problem. Gloria, thank you for coming along. To Josh and Josh, absolute champions. The crowd love you, my friend. Thank you for coming along and sharing your experiences this evening. George, thank you for coming. And Bryce, thank you for coming along this evening as well. Well, if you, as always, the volunteer forum will be available to be watched back on YouTube, but I also take this opportunity to remind people of the new features. If you're in the car or you're out and about, feel free to listen to the volunteer forum on your favourite podcasting streaming services, whether that be Spotify or Google Audio. So many ways in which you can come and listen to the volunteer forum. It's been a big year, and I'm sure many people would appreciate some of the exciting things that have happened in CFA throughout this year. This will be the last volunteer forum for 2023, and I also want to thank all of those people behind the scenes that make this happen, but none more so. And I'm actually going to embarrass them, so sorry gang, you're going to have to suck it up. Brad Thomas, please come forward. As I refer to him, he's my executive producer. To Martin Anderson, come on round, take a bow. And to Beth Ramshaw, come on Beth. And there are many others in the comms team that have made the volunteer forums an absolute success. I got to tell you, this team worked tirelessly in between volunteer forums, chasing down people to come and sit in the panel, trying to keep me on the straight and narrow, which, as Brad will tell you, is a mammoth task. But more importantly, they come and set up and make sure that these forums are as the best success that they can be for our members. So, gang, thank you very, very much for all your hard efforts this year. And to our live audience, thank you very much for coming here at Rochester this evening from far and wide, coming to enjoy, listen to us speak. You've been a bit of a quiet bunch, no curly questions. I'm actually wondering whether that's because your deputy is sitting closest to the microphone and anyone that dare get up suffers the wrath, but I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But thank you very much for coming along this evening. It's been fantastic to have you, and it's always great to have our members come and join live with us here as we go through the panel. Well, we've got a bit of a special thing to wind up this evening, and the team have put together a year in review, a snapshot of stills and videos of some of the highlights and some of the more sadder times that have occurred this year. So with that, I bid you good night, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. No matter what you do, no matter what the faith, no matter what you celebrate, I wish you all the best for the holiday season, and I wish you a very safe time and want to see you yet again when we return in 2024.
Yeah.